I think it's worth paying attention to, even though it's very small at this point, to the Move ecosystem. So things like Movement, Aptos, Sui.
I don't care what people's philosophies are. That's not how you make money. What you make money on is owning the best performing asset on a risk adjusted basis. Networks gaining adoption do best. ETH last cycle, Solana this cycle, and whoever it's going to be this cycle, whether it's Sui or whether it's Near or whatever it is, I don't know. We will see that, right? That is the easiest opportunity we get in this space to generate wealth. So firstly, focus on that. Well, it's a $2.5 trillion space today. If we carry on, by 2032, it's 100 trillion. I'm like, that's the largest accumulation of wealth in all human history in the shortest period of time.
Welcome back. In today's video, we're bringing you insights from conversation between Chris Burniske and Raoul. They discuss everything from investments in Solana, other newly growing ecosystems, and predictions on the explosive growth of the crypto market. Let's jump right in.
You know, I suppose most people always want to know, where are we in the cycle? And to use a baseball analogy, I would think of it for crypto, late third, early fourth inning of, 9 innings type of thing. I think it's worth paying attention to, even though it's very small at this point, to the Move ecosystem. So things like Movement, Aptos, Sui, just because there you have like crypto as a whole.
I'm actually on the foundation of Sui.
Okay. Well, so you're already there. And like, people are not really talking about that ecosystem right now in a way that I find interesting, because I always like to go where like people aren't talking about something much. It's an uncrowded wave that might get very good. And, when you look at the birth of Move and Sui and Aptos, it came out of Meta. That's a big deal. People don't realize like how much, time and work and money went in from the Meta side to make something for normies, right? That got pulled in the last, in the week before launch, let's say, and then, spread out to the broader ecosystem. And it's like, crypto people so hate the incumbents that they'll be like, ugh, Meta and Facebook. But normies will be like, wait, Meta built a lot of this core tech, and especially a normie dev, they might find that more credible than the whole rest of crypto, right? And it also, with things like ZK login or some of the innovations that are happening there, we might get to a world where we're spawning, wallets and there'll be lower security wallets probably, but just like we have a wallet versus like a bank account versus a safety deposit box and different, gradations of security, but we might be spawning low security, high use wallets off of our Gmail or, our phone number or whatever people choose. And so those types of integrations are coming too. And so we're 16 years in now, right, from the launch of Bitcoin, and we're just finally getting to the place where we've abstracted everything enough to the place where like normies can probably just continue to exist in the environments they're comfortable in and use, with crypto being used in the background to give them experiences they want.
Yeah, I've been very interested in following the whole Sui journey just because these guys are really at core Web 2 people who then became total experts in Web 3. And just seeing how they're abstracting away a lot. And also, they've got a lot of technological breakthroughs, the whole new Mr. Sentai thing, Mr. SETI or whatever it is, the latency, that latency is really important in a Web 2 world because we're used to zero latency. But in crypto, we're used to latency and it's actually a bit clunky. So there's a lot going on there. But I do think you're right. I think the big breakthrough is going to be integration into that gigantic world of 8 billion eyeballs or 6 billion eyeballs. The Blinks one, at first I was really like, this is incredible. And it is great. But like, I use a Safari browser. I can't even see these things. Even if I use Chrome and I gave it to a friend who's not in the space, if they don't have a wallet, it's nothing. So it's actually for crypto people when they're having a Web 2 experience. We haven't actually bridged that gap to make it Web 2 for Web 2 and nobody knows what it is or cares.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, this might end up requiring more competition on, the phone manufacturers, which Solana is, of course, attempting with the Saga phone. And, let's say Elon gets real about launching a phone to compete with Apple, that could get very interesting in terms of like how open that could be to blockchain backend systems. So I think it's so hard to figure out the exact unlocks and vectors through which major distribution is going to happen. But, I guess to reassure people, because sometimes people just ask, they're like, how do you maintain conviction through all these years, and all this volatility and like, all the questioning? And for me, it just always goes back to, these open data structures that are, can also be thought of as like global keepers of time for global coordination. They're so foundationally important. And in being keepers of time, they're also timeless. And so they have forever. And maybe that's too grand of a thing to say, but it's like, they're going to just continue being there, chugging along, timestamping information, and we will find ways to use them. Another way to think of it is they're the property rights recorders of the internet, right? And like property recordation and preservation is what in many ways was the kernel to allowing capitalism to blossom, because I'll invest into doing things if I can, reliably maintain my property rights. And this is the native property rights system for the internet. And nothing comes close. Like it is, it is layer 1 or layer 0 or whatever of property rights to the internet. And so, right now, for all of us who have been in the space for a long time and are on crypto Twitter and whatever, I think one of the sicknesses that we suffer from is we're constantly going to like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Like, how is this going to get like better and more abstract and like more entertaining? But it's like, no, actually, like the basic stuff that people talked about from the beginning will remain the most important. But we're so like ADD and needing the next dopamine hit that we just keep going for the next thing. But then normies that come to the space and maybe just buy Bitcoin, that could be life-changing for them. Or, that decide to set up a wallet so that, they can send stable coins to a family member somewhere, that could be life-changing to them, right? Or if not life-changing, like a significant boost in, to one of their, say, day-to-day activities, or life, long duration life activities. And so that reassures me too, right? That like, while we're all trying to figure out what's next, a lot of the world is still just slowly onboarding to the core basics that will remain most important.
How I started framing this, I always try and simplify, and I've got it down to this. This is the underlying, it's the new underlying infrastructure for the internet, as we've talked about. And people get confused. When I go around marketing our Thunder funds, people get confused still but there's this Bitcoin narrative, this narrative, that narrative. And I'm like, stop. These are all decentralized businesses that sell block space. And they have different qualities to their block space or a different narrative on what makes their block spaces effective. And that is, once people see that these are essentially decentralized businesses that operate and sell block space, people start to understand. And what's unique about this infrastructure layer, it's the first infrastructure layer in history that we can all participate in because of the behavioral incentives of a token system versus equity. And so when I look at it, I just look at the growth of the space, and it grows at 100 and something % a year, which is twice the speed of the internet, because obviously it's built on internet rails, so it should go quickly. And I just extrapolate that trend out, and I look at it, and it's like, well, it's a $2.5 trillion space today. If we carry on, by 2032, it's 100 trillion. I'm like, that's the largest accumulation of wealth in all human history in the shortest period of time. Even if I'm wrong by 50%, because I'm a total moron, it's the same as 100 years of value accrual of the S&P 500 in 8 years.
Right.
It's bananas. It's because we can own this adoption layer, and all of these businesses selling block space, that's all it's about. Best thing is just try and capture that growth first. If you're going to do anything in the space, stop trying to focus on the one thing. Just capture 2.5 trillion to 100 trillion. You'll be absolutely fine. I don't care what people's philosophies are. That's not how you make money. What you make money on
Yeah.
is owning the best performing asset on a risk adjusted basis. So what I tend to find is that the mid to upper part of the curve, which is networks gaining adoption, do best. ETH cycle, Solana this cycle, and whoever it's going to be this cycle, whether it's Sui or whether it's Near or whatever it is, I don't know. We will see that, right? That is the easiest opportunity we get in this space to generate wealth. So firstly, focus on that. That's the do not fuck this up thesis. If we're going from 2.5 trillion to 100 trillion, do that and you'll make a lot of money. What I do now is really simple. It's idiot proof. I just put the chart against Solana. If something looks like it's a sustained trend against Solana, I'll allocate some capital to it. And again, only about 10% of my portfolio will I do in that kind of stuff, but you can make a lot of money in those. And so, that's what got me into WIF and Bonk, because they were outperforming Solana. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. And now, if anybody shills me something, I just say, well, show me the chart outperforming Solana and I'll take a look.
Right.
That discipline makes it ultra easy for me, because I think because of this everything code liquidity cycle, everything is correlated, every asset in the world, which makes it and it's all driven by this same debt refi cycle, which makes it, I think, the easiest macro risk-taking environment of all time.
But I'm curious what your approach is to the timing of the cycle, and if it even really mattered to you until you see certain price points for BTC and ETH and SOL.
What I've learned over the years is if I have a core investing amount to this theme, I'm just not going to take it out. And then it removes all of this. So my entire objective is to buy the sell-off. So it kind of shifts your focus, because the highs are lower and the lows are higher and the highs are higher. So you actually just compound. If you want to keep it really stress-free, you just say, I can't wait for the next 85% correction when it comes in 2026, because I can buy more at cheap prices, and you keep compounding. The hard thing is last time around was difficult because most people's earnings were coming down. But generally speaking, you get a bit of a slowdown. But generally, if you can just inject new earnings in, you will just compound wealth, which is why Bezos and all these guys are the richest people in the world, because they take one bet and never got out of it. And people, I see this, people are now desperate because they understand there's a cycle to trade this thing. So my particular view is don't use price, use time. If you want to take some lifestyle chips off, if you want to buy a new house and buy a new car, whatever it is, take some off at the end of this year at whatever price. And then you can run the rest. Don't expect everything to repeat perfectly. But like you, I'm probabilistically saying, well, it just probably goes to the end of the year. My macro work on liquidity says liquidity peaks out, not goes negative or does anything else, just peaks out by about June or July. So
of 25.
Of 25. So, but I'm seeing Twitter just tie itself in knots about that fear of the last stage part. And so they desperately want to sell earlier.
Yeah.
They're so scared of it that they want to sell earlier, which makes me think the 2013 cycle feels more similar, where everyone's going to try and take profit. The market goes down and then rips in your face again because it's not over yet. So there's a lot to play for here. Could it just finish in March or something? That'll be really odd. The short cycle, I think that's off the table. A slightly stunted cycle, I think, is PTSD. I think your intuition is right. It's like, well, this finished the end of the year every time. The everything code is the same debt refinance cycle. Why necessarily would it change? Because as you pointed out before, the end of a bull market is not about liquidity, it's about flows.
Yeah.
So totally. The end of the bull market is where it kind of disconnects, because it's all of those people who stupidly didn't get in when we've been begging them for the last 2 years. That's when they make their mistake.
The crypto space is brimming with opportunities and challenges. From exciting growth projections, the game-changing potential of Bitcoin ETFs, to strategic investments in ecosystems like Solana and Sui. Remember to make informed strategic decisions based on quality and fundamentals. For more insights and latest crypto news, subscribe to our channel.